Old Powhatan Baptist Church has always thought about the next generation. What a fantastic testimony to God's faithfulness that for 250 years there's been a consistent gospel witness on this property in this county. And we got to think that there are generations in the past that were always thinking about their children and their grandchildren and making sure there was a gospel presence for them.
When we first attended church here, there was no running water, there was no electricity, and it was a dirt road down through here. And to look at what we have accomplished through the years for the Lord and where we are at now, I think it's been a great thing. The Lord has looked after us and been good to us.
I remember the original building that was down next to the cemetery that caught on fire in 1971. Burnt the whole church, educational space, and most of the sanctuary. Just a little bit of the sanctuary was left.
We rebuilt, and when we moved into this church, it was completely paid for.
Old Powhatan Baptist Church has been through so many stages in its history, but we're definitely in a stage now where the gospel taken to the ends of the earth is the heartbeat of this church. The Lord has been faithful for 250 years, and He's continuing in that faithfulness as He leads us in the next step of what's new at Old Powhatan Baptist Church. He's leading us to build. He wants us to be a people who take the excellencies of Jesus, to proclaim the excellencies of Jesus to the ends of the earth, and He's placed us here on this property at this time to be faithful. And we believe that God is calling us in that faithfulness to build a new worship center where we will all worship together as one church family. Our desire is to have one building that meets our needs. It'll be a room where we could have meals in if we needed to. It'll be a room where we can fellowship, where Bible studies can meet, but also where we'll all be able to worship together. It'll have the technology that we need built into it, but we also realize there's not a whole lot of space to commune with one another, to actually meet one another, or to meet guests and visitors. We have guests and visitors come through the doors every week. There's not a place for us to take them from the step of walking through the doors for the first time to committed membership, to being disciples and then disciple makers. And so a welcome center is going to allow that. The new build is also going to allow much better security for our children's ministry. Our children's ministry is growing. Not only is it going to give them space, but it's going to give them a secure space. We want to see this generation stick around. We want to see this generation become leaders. We want to see this generation become the gospel leaders of the church.
Jesus values children, and it's obvious why, when you work with them. And so my vision for them is that they know God and they love Him and they tell others about Him, that they live out the Great Commission.
We want to be good stewards of what God has given us as a church. And so we want to take the current space and renovate it to be more useful. And the current worship center where we've met now since 1972, it will be used every single Sunday for Sunday school classes, as a new fellowship hall, as a space where it can be used by our youth, by our children, by anyone who needs it, but it will be used each week as a reminder of God's faithfulness for the history of our church. So God has richly blessed Old Powhatan Baptist Church with a lot of land. We have acreage to spare. We're going to have much more special needs accessible parking. We're also going to put it in a place that's going to be easy for you to get back and forth to the front door of the church. We're going to have one entrance that everybody goes through, and our parking is going to be accessible to that.
It's exciting to see the unity that we'll have with having one building, one service, just all be able to fellowship together and be more of a family, a big family, instead of having like two little families.
I think one of the benefits of us all being together is we'll be able to experience that sense and that feel of community in a greater aspect, because we will literally all be worshiping at the same time.
We have the two services now, and people are kind of running into one another at various parts of the church as they're coming and going. But in this particular case, we're going to have a space that is specifically designed for people to come and meet one another and talk before, during, after church.
Also is going to give us a bigger place for our kids' ministry area to grow, because we're going to have more space for them.
Our hope is this will be the last worship center Old Powhatan Baptist Church ever has to build, Because when we get to capacity, we're going to be training and sending out people to plant churches. We always want to be taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. I'm excited that we as a church get to all join in to what God's purpose is for the future. And that's what we need. We need all of us to join in. 100% participation is what we need so that God will be blessed and honored through our giving, through our praying, through our united effort. 100% of the people who attend this church will be served by this new build, from our children to our senior adults and everyone in between, which means we need everyone, 100% of our people on board. We need you to pray. We need you to give. We need you to spread the word and invite people to come in who will pray and will give.
It takes every person, including those who aren't giving, to sacrifice beyond where they are today. God's already laid out that we can do this. It's us having the faith and then doing it in His time and the way He wants it done.
We don't want to rest on the laurels of what God has done so far. We believe Him for even greater things in the future. It really is a day for us to say, this is what's new at Old Powhatan Baptist Church. For us to say, God is up to something. He's the same God He always has been. Oh, but He's working in a new way among us. So wouldn't every member want to be a part of that? This can't rest on just a few of us. 100% participation has to be the goal. It has to be the benchmark, because when we do that, God is going to bless us tremendously. We want 50 years from now, 100 years from now, for there to still be a gospel presence here in Powhatan County on this location. As God has been faithful to us, it's our turn to be faithful to the next generation.